Claire covered her mouth in shock as she stared into the closet. A faded blue uniform hung inside with a night shift patch. Beside it sat a stack of bank receipts. The devastating truth hit her instantly. The 70-year-old mother-in-law she had just cruelly evicted had spent the last 5 years in secret, scrubbing hospital floors in the dead of night to pay her daughter's $40,000 private school tuition bill. Claire cared about appearances. She lived in a massive colonial brick house in a wealthy Chicago suburb. The driveway was paved with custom-stamped concrete. She drove a white 2024 Lexus SUV. The leather smelled like a new showroom. She spent her Tuesdays at the Oak Creek Country Club. She drank gin and tonics on the patio with women who wore white tennis skirts and heavy diamond rings. She wore a gold Rolex on her left wrist. She thought she was better than the people who worked for a living. She thought money made her untouchable. When she married Arthur 20 years ago, she made a strict rule: no contact with his mother. His mother was Martha. Martha was a retired diner waitress. She worked 40 years at a truck stop out on Route 66. She wore orthopedic shoes. She smelled like fried onions and strong coffee. Claire told Arthur his mother was an embarrassment. She said Martha didn't fit the country club image, so Arthur cut her off. He put Martha in a cramped, walk-up apartment building he owned on the south side of the city. Claire didn't speak to the old woman for 10 years. She pretended Martha didn't exist. Then Arthur died. It happened fast. A massive coronary on the 14th hole of the golf course. He was 52. The funeral was a massive production. Catered food, black-town cars, hundreds of people in expensive tailored suits. But the illusion didn't last a week. Claire sat in a mahogany-paneled law office. The estate lawyer pushed a stack of manila folders across the desk. He didn't look Claire in the eye. He told her the truth. Arthur had no money. The construction business went under 3 years ago. The house was heavily mortgaged. The Lexus was leased. Arthur had taken out massive, high-interest secret loans to keep up Claire's country club lifestyle. He was drowning in debt. The bank didn't just take the brick house. They took the white Lexus right out of the driveway. They liquidated the country club membership. Claire was left with nothing but a mountain of unpaid utility bills and aggressive collection notices. The only asset the bank didn't seize was the deed to the rundown brick apartment building on the south side, the place where Martha lived. It wasn't worth enough to cover the remaining debt. Claire was bitter. She blamed everyone but herself. She blamed Arthur for being weak. She blamed his family. She rented a cheap, compact Ford Focus. The steering wheel was sticky. The floor mats were stained. She drove south down Interstate 55. The scenery outside the windshield changed. The manicured green lawns faded away. They were replaced by cracked asphalt, chain-link fences, and abandoned industrial warehouses. She pulled up to the apartment building. The red brick was stained dark with exhaust soot. The iron fire escape bolted to the front was rusted solid. Claire walked up 3 flights of narrow stairs. The carpet on the steps was worn down to the wooden backing. The hallway smelled of boiled cabbage, stale cigarette smoke, and damp plaster. She banged her fist on the thin wooden door. Martha opened it. The old woman was 70 years old. Her hair was thin and white, pinned up with cheap bobby pins. She wore a faded yellow house dress. She looked exhausted. Her hands were heavily calloused. The knuckles were swollen thick with arthritis. She wore cheap black shoes with thick rubber soles. Claire didn't say hello. She pushed past the old woman into the apartment. The place was tiny. A cracked linoleum floor. A humming refrigerator from the 1980s. A small black and white television sitting on a plastic milk crate. Claire turned around. Her voice was ice. She told Martha that Arthur was dead. She told her there was no money left. She said she was selling the building by the end of the week to pay off the debts. She told the old woman she had 2 hours to pack her things and get out. Martha didn't yell. She didn't argue. She didn't even cry. She just looked at Claire with heavy, exhausted eyes. She walked into the small bedroom. She pulled a battered brown vinyl suitcase from under the twin bed. She packed 3 dresses, a worn Bible, a pair of heavy walking shoes. She snapped the rusted metal latches on the suitcase shut. She walked out the front door. She didn't look back. She headed down the rusted stairs to catch a city bus. Claire was alone in the apartment. She wanted to clear the place out fast. She wanted to list it with a broker by morning. She grabbed a box of black plastic trash bags from under the sink. She started in the bedroom. She opened the warped wooden closet door. The brass hinges squeaked loudly. That was when she saw it. Hanging on a bent wire hanger was a heavy canvas work jacket. It was navy blue. It was stiff with dried bleach, industrial floor wax, and harsh detergents. A white fabric patch was sewn over the left breast pocket. Black embroidered letters read, "Night Shift, Memorial Hospital." Claire stared at the stiff blue canvas. She reached up to the dusty top shelf of the closet. Her hand hit a heavy tin coffee can, an old red Folgers can. She pulled it down. The plastic lid was loose. She opened the can. Hundreds of bank deposit slips spilled out onto the bare mattress. They were bundled tightly with thick, dry-rotted rubber bands. Claire picked up a bundle. She looked at the carbon copy receipts. They were deposits into the exact bank account Arthur used to pay for her daughter's elite private school. The prep school cost $40,000 a year. The deposits were made in cash, $3,000 a month, every single month. For the last 5 years, at the bottom of the tin can, Claire found a letter. The paper was folded and creased. It was in Arthur's handwriting. It was dated 5 years ago. Arthur wrote that his business was failing. He wrote that he was terrified Claire would leave him if the money stopped. He begged his mother for a loan. Martha didn't have money to loan, but she had a strong back. Claire did the math. The reality hit her like a sledgehammer. The old woman hadn't just survived in this tiny room. At 65 years old, Martha had taken a job pushing a heavy mop bucket. She scrubbed hospital floors on her hands and knees, from midnight until 6 in the morning. She breathed in bleach and ammonia. She ruined her back. She destroyed her hands. She did it all to pay the tuition for a granddaughter she wasn't even allowed to see. She did it to protect a son who had abandoned her. She endured Claire's absolute hatred without ever saying a single word. Claire dropped the receipts. She fell to her knees on the cracked linoleum floor. The air left her lungs. The cheap floor felt cold through her designer slacks. She looked at the blue uniform. She remembered the swollen knuckles she had just seen on the old woman's hands. Claire realized the monster she had become. Her entire life was a lie built on the broken back of an old woman. Claire scrambled to her feet. She ran out of the apartment. She didn't lock the door. She ran down the 3 flights of stairs. Her expensive heels clicked frantically on the rusted metal. She got into the rented Ford. She shoved the key into the ignition. She threw it into gear. The tires squealed on the dirty asphalt. She knew exactly where Martha was going. The Greyhound bus terminal downtown. The only place a broke old woman with a vinyl suitcase could go to find a cheap ticket out of the city. Claire drove recklessly. She ran a red light on Michigan Avenue. She wove through heavy city traffic. Her hands gripped the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. She pulled into the Greyhound station. The air smelled thick with heavy diesel exhaust, hot asphalt, and burnt oil. She left the Ford running in a yellow loading zone. She didn't care about a ticket. She ran through the smudged glass doors of the terminal. The terminal was packed. Fluorescent lights buzzed loudly overhead. People sat on hard plastic chairs, holding cheap nylon luggage and paper tickets. Claire scanned the loading bays. Out at Bay 4, a silver Greyhound bus was idling. The pneumatic doors were open. The driver was checking tickets. Standing in line was Martha. She held her battered brown suitcase. Her shoulders were slumped. Claire ran past the security desk. She pushed through the crowd. Martha turned around. Claire reached the line. She didn't care about the people watching. She didn't care about her status, her clothes, or her pride. She dropped to the dirty concrete floor of the bus bay. She grabbed Martha's free hand. The skin was rough. The calluses were thick. It was the hand of a woman who had worked a mop handle for 5 years straight. Claire started to sob. Great, heaving breaths. She told Martha she saw the uniform. She told her she found the receipts and the coffee can. Martha looked down. She didn't look angry. She just looked sad. She spoke quietly. She said Arthur was a good boy. She said he just got lost. Claire shook her head. The tears ruined her expensive makeup. She told the old woman she was the one who was lost. She confessed that she took everything. She threw her out, and Martha had paid for her daughter. Martha had saved them. Claire begged her not to get on the bus. The diesel engine of the Greyhound roared. The driver called for final boarding. Martha said she had nowhere else to go. Claire stood up. She took the heavy vinyl suitcase from Martha's hand. She looked the old woman in the eye. She said they didn't have the big house anymore. They didn't have the cars, but they had an apartment, and she promised Martha would never touch a mop again. Martha looked at Claire. The old woman's eyes were wet. She slowly nodded her head. They walked away from the bus. They walked out of the diesel fumes and into the afternoon sun. That was 6 years ago. Claire never went back to the country club. She got a job working the front desk at a dental clinic. She wears comfortable shoes. She drives a 10-year-old Honda. They live in that small brick apartment on the south side. They painted the walls. They put down a new rug. Every evening, Claire cooks dinner. She sets a plate in front of Martha. She pours her coffee. She makes sure the old woman's arthritis medicine is sitting right next to her cup. Claire finally figured out the truth about the world. You can wear a heavy gold watch. You can drive a luxury car with pristine leather. But if you don't know how to treat your own family, you're the poorest person on earth. The real wealth isn't in a bank account. It is in the calloused hands of the people who love you when you do not deserve it. Some lessons are learned the hard way. If this story hit home for you, hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel for more stories about real life, hard truths, and second chances. Share this with someone who knows the true meaning of family. Thanks for listening.